Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. It's Samantha here. Look, being an empath is is awesome. It's a blessing, but you do know that it can also be detrimental um, to your health, to us overall. So I want to talk to you today about being an empath or how we operate as empaths. We are spiritually in tune individuals, whereas when we feel somebody else's pain or we hear somebody else's story, or we hear somebody else's issues or troubles, we want to rush in and we want to help them. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? By the way, give the video a thumbs up, share the video with someone who could use this information, because this is some serious stuff. Now, I printed out some stuff I wanted to read to you with respect to empaths and what certain sections mean when we do certain things and we have certain actions, and how the consequences can affect us along the way. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and continue to talk about being empaths. So, sometimes there are hidden dangers of being an empath, right? So, we have emotional overloads. And what that means is um, that's one of the primary dangers for us is the emotional overload. So we're constantly tuning into other people's emotions, whether it's a friend that's going through a heartbreak or a stranger's anxiety. It can just all leave us overwhelmed. So imagine holding out a sponge under a faucet that never turns off. Eventually, that sponge becomes soaked up and unable to take in anything else. So, for empaths, it's a constant exposure to us of other people's emotions, and that can lead to emotional burnout. So, without setting healthy boundaries, we become so preoccupied with other people's feelings that we forget to care for ourselves, which is so true because we're always putting other people before us. And so that's kind of like the story of my life. And we have difficulty setting boundaries. I don't know about you, but I do. I have difficulty setting boundaries. I have difficulty telling people no because I feel like if I tell them no, I'm going to lose them as a friend, or it's just hard. So, we have trouble setting boundaries physically and emotionally because naturally also we're inclined to help. We want to provide support, and I'm in a phase that I'm learning to not dive in and jump in and offer help so quick when I hear people's issues, because sometimes people just call just to want to vent. But because we're empaths, we want to, immediately help. So we can sometimes ignore or sacrifice our own needs, which is so true. So again, whether it's an overbearing friend that's always wanting something, always bothering you about something, or a manipulative partner, even our family members, who can be the worst. So everybody's in constant crisis, and we feel obligated to be there for everybody else. But that makes us lack boundaries, in which that can lead to exhaustion, stress, and I really try to live a stress-free life, and a sense of being constantly on call for other people. And just know this: setting boundaries is not about less caring. It doesn't mean that we don't care. It just means that we are going to put ourselves first, and there is nothing wrong with that. We just have to know our limits, so that we can give to people in a sustainable way. So saying no, I learned, as a complete sentence. You don't have to offer an explanation behind it. It's just No. And if you have somebody that are friends, that are truly friends, they're going to respect that. They're going to respect that boundary that you set when you say no. And just know it's not being selfish. It's just I'm going to put myself first for a change. Because empaths who cannot set boundaries, they often find themselves emotionally drained, once again, mentally exhausted, and unable to be present, for anybody, including especially for themselves. And so then we move on to we neglect our own self care. So, constantly attending to the emotional needs of other people, empaths often put their own needs last. Self care can feel selfish to someone whose natural tendency is to help others, and it does. But in reality, self care is essential. So, when empaths neglect self care, they can become depleted, stressed, even physically unwell. Really, because it all goes in and it just gets in your spirit, and it can manifest physically. So prioritizing self-care, whether it's taking time alone to recharge, because I know sometimes I have to shut down the electronics, maybe disconnect from so many phone call conversations and all of that, in order to engage in other things. So it's important we should seek hobbies, or seek support for our own mental health so we can stay sane. And so all of that allows for the empath to be there for others in a balanced and a sustainable way. So the fifth point, over identifying with others, their struggles. So lastly, empaths, they face the risk of losing themselves in other people's pain. And that's terrible. So it's natural to feel compassion and empathy, but when we begin to take on other people's personal struggles as if they were our own, we blur the lines of self identity. I know I do it all the time. I have so many examples. It's like we have to learn to stay in our lane. We can't jump out and help every single person that comes across with their own issues. So, when we take on other people's struggles as if they're their own, we blur the lines. So, over time, this can lead to feelings of confusion, helplessness, and even depression. But thank God, I don't think I've ever experienced depression with this. So, just remember that as an empath, we can understand and offer support, but it's not our role to fix someone else's pain. Each person has to walk their own path, and we can be there to support them without taking on the burdens that don't belong to us. So, what we need to do is we need to find balance as being an empath, because that's very, very, very important. So, where does that leave us? Um, is being an empath a curse? Absolutely not. It's a rare and beautiful thing that brings understanding, compassion, and healing into a world that often lacks these qualities. But like any gift, it requires